Proceed into our meeting. I'd like to open with a moment of silence in honor of Blake Manzione, the learner from Strong Middle who passed away last month. Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our next item is the approval of tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Lindsay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Bob. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, item 3, the election of officers. We will begin with the election for the officer of chairman of the Board of Education. I will now open the floor to nominations, and I'll remind folks that these nominations do not require seconds.
I nominate Lucy Petrella for chair.
Okay, Lindsay nominates Lucy. Are there any other nominees? Okay, hearing none, I will close the nominations. Call for a vote. All those in favor of Lucy Petrella as chair, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, congratulations, Lucy. The gavel is yours.
The next order of business is the election of the secretary. So do we have a nomination for secretary?
I nominate Lindsay.
So we have a nomination for Lindsay. Are there any other nominations? No? All those in favor of Lindsay for secretary? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. The last officer is for treasurer. So do we have a nomination for treasurer?
I nominate Jason Stone for treasurer.
Okay, we have a nomination of Jason Stone. Any others? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of Jason Stone for treasurer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Thank you. That's wonderful. And thank you very much again for your support. We have a very exciting presentation today of our MTA graduates. Samantha's here to kind of give us some of the board members, well, all of us anyway, a little bit of a background on what MTA, the Middlesex Transition Academy, is all about. And then there's a small, short slideshow of our recent graduates. There were 3 of us that did attend the graduation, and it's just amazing. It's very emotional, very, very touching. So
Yeah, it was really amazing to be there. We were all pretty excited to be there. It's also a true testament to this whole year where we've seen Samantha step into the role at Memorial, and MTA still ran seamlessly and happily, and we're just really proud of you, so thank you.
Thank you.
And Samantha, if you're more comfortable, you can sit right here.
It's okay.
Present to the board, or you can stand,
I'm-
whatever your
that
preference
closer.
is.
Sure.
A lot of orders, Samantha.
No, it's okay. I'm going to actually, it's a short presentation, but I figured I'd give a little bit of an overview, and then I'll share the slideshow, and then open it up for any questions if you guys have any. So, Drew, really quickly, do I have to touch this again? Yes? Connect? Okay, one second. So Middlesex Transition Academy, and thank you guys for coming to the graduation. You're all always welcome every year. It is truly an amazing program, and we're extremely lucky to have it here. So about 19 years ago, it was born, and the vision was really to answer the question, what happens to our students who have learning difficulties, who turn 18, but still require public education? because the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act requires public education to occur until students are 21 years old. And recently that actually changed to 22 years old. And what used to happen is that they used to just kind of stay at high school and continue with their life skills program. And you know, people sort of did the best they could. But as you can imagine, that doesn't exactly prepare them for the workforce or for the real world, because the real world is very different. So here at District 13, we started a transition program, and it is tucked away right at Wesleyan campus. And it is a place where our students from District 13 come, and we also accept students from around the state of Connecticut. And so we have them come in, and they are there, usually they come after their senior year, and they stay until they're 21 or 22. If they meet their goals before then, they certainly can graduate and move on. And we get to have these wonderful graduations where they really kind of run the show. So they come in excited because their senior year is over, and then we kind of hit the pavement really hard. And what they do is they work through sort of 3 different sets of information. The first one is vocational, which is an internship, and we've got internships both in the community of Middletown as well as on campus. So our students work a variety of shifts, starting with 2 hours and working up to 4 hours, and they do that 4 days a week. They also work with job shadows and learning about applications and mock interviews to really prepare them if they're going to go out into the workforce. For academics, we've got sort of 2 tracks. We've got the life skills track, and they're learning things like budgeting and cooking, banking, safety. And then we do have some students who are really looking to do more educationally, and so we have a really good relationship with Middlesex Community College. We've got a bunch of students who are taking classes there to sort of just figure out if college is for them, how and what they get for accommodations in that sector, and how to really advocate for themselves for the next steps of their education. And then the third part is the social skills, and this is really sort of the exciting part, because a lot of these students haven't had an opportunity to be in a place where there are lots of students like them. So we do an outing at least once a week, and they plan it themselves. They plan the budget, they plan where they want to go, and then they go and do it. So they might go out for breakfast, or they might go to Manchester and go to Dave & Buster's, right? Like whatever they want to do, and they've got to sort of navigate the public sector as well as navigate sort of their peer relationships. And it really teaches them about, like, I worked and I made this money, and I'm gonna spend this money, and I'm gonna make my budget, and I'm gonna find friends that maybe like sort of the things that I like. It's really about the application of skills. So they're doing it in real time, and then they're learning from every experience. And over the course of 3 years, you can imagine that they really grow in that way, and then they become more and more independent, which is usually the #1 call of parents, is like, I just need to know that they'll be okay if I go on vacation for a week, right? Like, will they remember to get up and have breakfast? One of the highlights of our program is the West Buds. So they're Wesleyan students. It's a Wesleyan student-run group, and they are our peer mentors. And so once a month at least, they plan something on campus. Honestly, no matter what they plan, our students are all about it. So it could be that they're just going to the dorms and having like an ice cream party, or it could be that they're having like a master hip hop class. The students go and they're thrilled, and they're on campus, and they're really learning. Like, that is what another 19-year-old will do, and that's what I'm striving for. So we always, and because that's a student-run program, it changes, right? Like, as their leadership changes, we are exposed to more and more things on the Wesleyan campus. So, like I said, students kind of stay until their goals are met, and then they have this graduation. And the way that it used to work was everyone graduated in June, so we used to have these elaborate graduations. And this was really our last year of being able to have that, because the new legislation is that students graduate on their 22nd birthday. So we were really excited for this year, because we had 4 students who were all kind of leaving in June. And what we do for our graduation is we always do a little slideshow, and we put sort of the best pictures together of the 3 or 4 years that these students were there. So I'm gonna show the slideshow, and as I show it, I will tell you a little bit about the students. None of them are from Regional School District 13. They all came to our program from other places, so I'm gonna hit play on this, and I'll tell you a little bit about them. Okay. And then you're gonna see too, the excitement, because they choose the outings. So, so here we go. So Kaylee came to us from Meriden, and she actually was outplaced for the last 6 years of her public education. And so when she came to us, she was sort of like in awe that she would have all of this freedom. And her goal is to work at Once Upon a Child, which is a secondhand store for children, for children's items. And she's really striving towards that, and she's worked at Big Lots for the last 2 years with us, and she can work up to 5-hour shifts. So when she left us, she said, I'm gonna live in an apartment in my parents' house, and I'm gonna work at Once Upon a Child. And she really, truly might. So then there's Andre, who worked at Price Chopper. He came from Cromwell, and he is currently doing a stay-at-home program where he has a mentor that stays with him and takes him to work, and it's still voluntary at Price Chopper. He's still learning that, so that is what he's doing upon graduation. Daniel also came from Cromwell. His goal is to be a pastor or a youth minister. He's very active in his church, and he just got accepted to Manchester Community College. And finally, there's Lauren, who came from Old Lyme, and she is at Middlesex Community College, and she's an art major, and it's like her ultimate proud moment. If you do a tour at the academy and you meet Lauren, that's the first thing she'll say. I'm an art major at Middlesex Community College, and she wears her badge like it is the best thing she's ever gotten. And she was actually very sad on graduation day. She read a beautiful speech. She thanked all of the staff and all of her family, and then she said, you guys have the light. You have the light, so let your light shine. And when I come back, I'll see all of you, and I'll see your light. And so we let them read a speech at graduation that I always listen to first, right? But we let them talk about what they think is best to them, and some of them, it's all about the staff, and they will say, I'm going to miss Coach Doug, or I'm going to miss Miss Nora. But a lot of them, it's about their friends, and it's about the experiences that they've had. Because they've never been able to say, I'd really like to go to Hubbard Park, right? I'd really like to go meet my friends there. But once they do it with us, they usually gain some confidence. And being in Middletown, we're actually really lucky. We get students from all over the state, and they can meet in Middletown. So we'll have families who will say, I know that their friend is from Old Lyme, but do you think they'll come to Middletown for pizza? And usually the answer is yes. So they're making those connections, and they're making the connections on Wesleyan campus. So we're incredibly proud of the 4 of them, incredibly proud of my entire staff for holding it together, even in my absence. And just happy that you guys could hear about our great program. So does anyone have any questions? I'm happy to answer anything you might have.
Do we have any upcoming graduates from our district this coming year?
Great question. So we do have a student who will age out and graduate in November, who is from our program, from District 13. And then the next one is not for another 2 years. Our incoming class actually has 5 students from District 13. So they're a big group, which is really exciting. Some of them started summer school today. Yes.
Sam, you were talking about a special program that the Wesleyan students were going to be putting together, a play or
Sure.
drama. If you'd like to share
Sure.
that a little bit.
So our current officers of the West Buds program are really into drama, and they've noticed that our students are really interested in that too. They're interested in music, they're interested in acting. So they have put together a proposal to start a drama class that would be 50% students from the academy and 50% students from Wesleyan, and they would put together a production. And so they would get credit for that, and we would get the exposure for that. And so I just received part of that proposal where they're trying to figure out sort of like who would be the director of that play and how much support do they need. We were thinking it would get together for the fall, but now it's looking like the spring. But yes, that's our next big opportunity.
And please let us know when it's ready to go, because we'd love to come and
Absolutely.
love to come and see it.
Sure.
When Lindsay and I stopped to visit, Andre and there was another, Lauren, were in the kitchen, and Andre was making his chocolate chip cookies, and they really looked good when they took them out of the oven.
Yes.
They were really good. Yeah. So, and I think, just as a reminder, the students who come from outside of the district do pay a tuition because the MTA program is self-sufficient.
Not only is it self-sufficient, but it actually, it
Financially.
makes money for our district
And,
as well.
right. Depending on how many
On the year.
students we have
Mhm.
coming from outside. It's really, it's incredible. It's really incredible. Does anyone have any questions, any other questions or thoughts?
Lucy, could I say something?
Yes.
Two things. One, Jen Keene, who's not able to be here tonight, because she's on a cruise, so I'll be jealous, is also very involved in this program. So Samantha and I both wanted to make sure to give her a shout out for her hard work in this program. And also, since Samantha's here, I just wanted to publicly thank her, not just for the great work at MTA, but for stepping in to be the interim principal at Memorial at a time when we really needed her. And so, thank you.
And thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is public comment. At the beginning of the meeting, the public comment should refer to items on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Oh. Anyone in the public? Yeah, Carl.
Good evening, Carl Durham, Carl Stout Durham. I want to thank you for the meeting still being available online through YouTube and what have you. But the fact that the public cannot participate over line, I may have missed an update on that. I was wondering where we're at with that so that the public can call in, be able to speak at these meetings, the ones that can't make it here. I thought we were headed in that direction. Thank you.
Lucy, can I have a point of clarification? Carl, we are looking at different routes, and Ken's been working on it, so we'll have an update by next meeting.
Oh, all right. I thought maybe I had just possibly missed it or it was kind of dropped or what.
No, we're trying to find the best solution possible, so.
That's great. Glad we're still working on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, before we move on to our next item, we have a new member who has officially joined us today, Mariah. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here. We have another new member, Mariah's from Durham. We have a member from Middlefield, Linda Darcy, who's not able to make it. She had a vacation, so, but she should be here at the next meeting. Item number 6 is approval of minutes. These are the minutes of June 8th. I looked over the minutes. I didn't see any corrections. I don't know if anyone else did.
We have some,
Oh, you have some, okay.
so I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, so motion by Lindsay, seconded
Second.
John.
Any
And
corrections?
The corrections.
Yep, John's got it.
Yeah, on page 2.
Okay.
Section D should be 15 years ago. And then, same paragraph, down by history, have they gone to the, should be have they gone. The rest of those, I didn't find anything else.
Okay, any other corrections? No? So we have a motion to accept the minutes as amended of the June 8th, 2022 meeting. If there's another
So
motion.
moved.
Lindsay and John. Okay, all in favor of approving the amended minutes of June 8th?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so those are done. Item number 7 is the superintendent's report, if you have anything.
Only a couple things, and they're really brief. First, I'd just like to echo welcoming Mariah to the group. And I'll welcome Linda in her absence. Glad that she's on board too, and to congratulate Lucy, Lindsay, and Jay for their continued appointments. Look forward to working with all of you in those capacities. And I'll have a bit more to share on item 8B before Kevin takes that one, but that's it for my report.
Item number 8, staff reports. Director of Finance?
Kim, a brief report. As we closed out June, we're still working on our final rollover of purchase orders and closeout of those purchase orders, we're getting very close. We have expended general fund 98% of the budget, and we've received 99.7% of the budgeted revenue. MTA is 70% expended, and 69% of revenue received. And I'm going to discuss further at the next meeting the reconciliation of the MTA revenue being lower. Capital Reserve, we received our full bonding funds in May. I may have reported that last month. I couldn't remember if I did. We're thinking, I'm estimating an end of the year surplus of just north of $200,000. But that will be firmer next month when I have a little bit closer, better numbers. So typically what happens with that, not typically, what happens with that is that it goes into the fund balance. Certainly not used to balance 22-23 because we've already built that budget. It'll help balance 23-24. And we have our auditors' field work starting August 8th. Will be the first week that they're out. They usually come out for 2 weeks, August and then in October. That's it. Oh, I do actually, sorry, one other thing. That $30 million that I had spoken to about for the school lunch that the Connecticut General Assembly put aside, they have awarded it to a program they called School Meals Assistance Revenue for Transition, or SMART funds. And essentially what they're gonna do is they're gonna provide funds to school districts that participated to help transition those families who, actually it'd be free lunch for all, but to help those families who need to complete the paperwork to get back on the free and reduced, because we weren't requiring applications before. We have not been informed how much we're gonna get, so we're not sure how long that's gonna last us. So my recommendation would be, we were gonna talk about potential of increasing lunch prices. We can just kind of hold off until we see how much we got from that.
Item number B, staffing update. Kevin?
All right, if I could start, Lucy, thank you. So as you all know, whether you were on the board or new, we did have a major change to our budget that reduced our staffing significantly, more so than has been done in recent times. And so making all of that work going into the next school year is not an insignificant process, and it's a process that is still ongoing. And I know this has been challenging for some of our employees who are used to more normal times when we end the school year and everything is exactly kind of as they anticipate it perhaps, and then it doesn't change a whole lot over the summer. But I want to rest assured that we are working through that, Kevin and others. So he's going to give his update, but also Deb and Katie are here from the high school administration because we know we've had some inquiries and some concerns from a few parents out there about the status of certain programs and things like that. We want to make sure we can answer all that this evening and kind of let you know kind of where it stays now and where it may go moving forward. So Kevin?
Okay, thank you, Doug. So as Doug has mentioned, at the high school, we had 4 teaching positions cut. At Strong, we had 3.5 teaching positions cut rather late in the school year. So obviously that's a total of 7.5 teaching positions. And when you have an instance like that, it's been a while since a district has seen staffing reductions of this scale. And so what you do as a district and from a human resources perspective is you make every effort to find positions within the district if possible. And you look through retirements and try again to put people in various areas to allow them to keep their jobs. Unfortunately, this year, we had 4 individuals that we had to tell they no longer had positions in the district. Those individuals were all untenured teachers, which is difficult, but the good news is there's a lot of teaching positions in the state. If you go on the teacher job sites, there are a number of positions in all subject areas. So, we wish them the best of luck moving forward. Just going back to the staffing reductions, we had mentioned that we were planning to offer all classes this year that we offered last year. And when you lose the number of positions we have, it's challenging, but I think we can accomplish this goal. And as Doug mentioned, we're still working on some various aspects of the schedule, but it's our hope, and hopefully we can assure you that there'll be no loss of specific classes next year as we move forward. Okay? So anytime you have a process like this, it does involve a movement of a lot of teachers. And as Doug alluded to, it's been a little while since we've had that scale of teachers moving around. And, you know, I did mention that we try to accomplish this through retirements. Another way to accomplish this is through voluntary transfers. So we will post specific positions, and staff members currently on staff in other buildings, if they're properly certified, can volunteer to transfer to those positions. We've had 2 of those. And moving forward, we also have involuntary transfers. And the contract does allow us to do that. It's something that's not preferred from our perspective. But again, if we have a staff member who's certified, meets some criteria, certainly we can transfer that person into the area of certification. When we do these transfers, they're based primarily on 3 factors. So first and most, I guess they're equally important, but the first factor would be seniority, numbers of years in the district. The next area is area or areas of certification. We have some teachers that have one specific certification. We have teachers in the district that have multiple certifications. So certainly that's a factor that goes into play in terms of placing teachers in different locations. And also we look at previous experience and background. If a teacher has experience at the elementary level, naturally if we have to transfer folks, we would look to place those individuals in their areas of experience. So as Doug alluded to, we still need to finalize several of these positions. We do have an internal posting, and we hope to get a candidate for that position that would allow us to move another individual into a classroom teaching position. So, you know, it's obviously not the best of circumstances, but it's a reality. It's something that the district needed to do. So, you know, I think we're on fairly solid ground as far as, you know, our staffing for next year.
And then can I add, in addition to all this happening, we also have kind of the normal retirement resignation cycle that we don't always anticipate. And I think it's important that we share that, because as some were saying, you know, are we gonna offer everything we offered last year exactly the way we do that? Sometimes that's dependent on having the qualified staff to do that. So one that we just bring to your attention, just as an example, is we had the resignation of the library media specialist position from the high school, who was also a part-time Latin teacher with the district. So we are currently posting for the Latin piece of that, and I don't believe we've hired anyone for that yet.
Not at this
correct?
time, Doug.
So you know, we're gonna do our best to sustain that program as best we can, but we need to have a qualified person to do that. And you know, lots of moving parts. We have a Latin person at the middle school who could possibly come to the high school, but there was already other areas of her specialty that were programmed for other parts of the district. And so this is where Kevin and the team of administrators really just have to manage to all of this and try to do right by our learners, while also, I think, and this came out, I think, in some of the emails we received, if there is a situation where we're not gonna be able to offer something that we offered last year for any number of reasons, we're gonna have to communicate that to families. And I think, you know, and Deb and Katie are here, and they can answer more specifics as you have them, but what goes into this process every year is not simply who we have on staff, but it's also driven by the enrollments and the registrations, and have enough young people signed up for a course to justify it, but also, what is it also conflicting with that they've also selected, and what choices are they making, and is the school making to do this? And so, yeah, we wanted to make sure that we quelched any of the rumors that were out there about we've already made solid decisions to eliminate any programs, because, I mean, Deb and Katie are there. We haven't at this point, but certainly people are going to speculate around those things.
So Kevin, maybe Deb and Katie either, if we have classes that have like just a few kids signed up for them, that's a situation that could possibly be happening with certain classes with electives, right?
Absolutely. One of the things, you know, when we were charged with making some cuts, one of the things that Katie and I looked hard at was, as you guys know, and you see on the enrollment, one of the things that we looked at was, you know, getting those average class size numbers up. You guys look at those numbers every year. Kim runs the numbers. And I think the high school was somewhere around 12.5, was their average class size. And so some of those classes that were either being team taught with co-taught with low numbers, or just have low numbers are the ones that we look at first. It's not, when we look at a whole section, technology for instance, we're still running 2 sections of engineering, 2 sections of robotics, AP computer science programming. So if out of all those things, it's the coding class that doesn't have the numbers, or that it runs concurrently against SAT prep, which has been, I know some of you were on the board when that was a discussion, the SAT prep class. It conflicts, and then it makes it hard. And even some of the kids that chose coding, they also chose robotics. So you can't necessarily get into both, you know what I mean? That's why they have the choices and the alternates. So for things like that, that's what Katie and I look at. She's got a whole notebook. I haven't seen her in 2 weeks. She's got a whole notebook. There are classes that need to be balanced between sections that are running more than one, some questions that we still have that we have to look at. So it's a balancing act, something brand new for me, but really kind of interesting when you look at it, because if you put all the kids in period 1 this, that means whatever else runs period 1, you want to make sure everybody has their science, their math, their English, whatever they want. And just to speak to the English piece, the decision about English 12 was made prior to any budget cuts, because they wanted to offer things that pique the interest of the students. So they took away the general English 12 and offered psychology and journalism, yearbook.
Fantasy, film is lit, sports literature, and they're all half-year classes now too, so that we can ensure that our, most advanced senior learners here, we would keep them engaged in what truly interested them throughout their final year here at Cog.
And the 12th grade requirement's 1 credit, so those 0.5 credits for those individualized English classes, that's each semester. So they have to take 2 of those individualized in order to meet the 12th grade science English requirement, right?
Correct, which would have equaled the full year English 12.
Okay.
I think the other thing that we've all kind of uncovered through this is that the master schedule has some challenges to it, and we think maybe we can work with those over the next year, especially when we're in this reimagining mode, because we don't want to see anyone have to choose one thing they like over something else they like, because again, they're still young people and they're still exploring their passions. But I think historically what we've come to understand is that the schedule has been somewhat limiting, and that's where these guys and others are trying to do everything that they can. And when is it that we actually lock this schedule down? Is it towards the end of this month?
So it has to be before Jen Anderson rolls over Power Schedule and Power School, so I think it's the 27th or the 29th of June. It has to be finalized by, we can't make.
July, you mean July.
July.
2 weeks vacation time, we got
My
it.
very best.
Yeah, so I guess what I've tried to communicate to some of the emails that I've received, and I know Deb and others have as well, is that you can have concerns, and we want to hear those, and we want to know what programs you value and all this, but we haven't made any final decisions yet. And again, going back to something I said earlier, I think in years past, these final decisions had pretty much been made and were considered almost kind of lock solid, written in stone, because there weren't all these other factors that we have this year. And so some of this is just reassuring folks of that. But as I said before, if we do get to the point where we can't offer everything we offered last year, then we're just gonna have to tell folks that.
And to your point, Doug, sorry to interrupt, that idea of maybe, I'll use coding as the class just because that's what I'll use. Maybe it runs every other year. Do you know what I mean? It's not in an order where they have to take coding before they take something else, before they take something else. So, if they're in that tech stream and they want to take it, maybe it's something we offer every other year to make it, the numbers go up and the kids get in it. So it's something to that effect.
Yeah, that segues into what I was just gonna ask, is I wanna make sure that we're saying it, if for some reason we don't run a certain class, that class still stays in our programming.
Absolutely.
And we're gonna offer it the following year.
Absolutely.
And we're gonna see if the kids
As
want
long
it.
as we have the.
Well, and
the
let
staff
me take it a
to
step
do it.
further. And again, I can't promise this because these guys would have to implement this, and certainly we're not changing the master schedule this year, but I'd like to say that we're trying to adopt a different mindset, and instead of just saying no, trying to find people how to get to their yes. And so whatever we're talking about, there might be creative ways to support and offer in less traditional ways. Now, maybe the learners don't want to do that, maybe their families don't, maybe the staff isn't in love with that. But I think that has to be our goal and kind of our commitment, is if they want it, we have to try to do that. And I think there's a number of strategies that we may have not explored historically, either because we just haven't thought to, or maybe just because we haven't had to. We've had the luxury of more staffing and more sections and things that we simply don't right now.
As you talk about having the luxury of more staffing and more sections, in the past, has it ever happened that without having to have staff be cut and moved around, that you found that some of your classes were too low and they were not offered? Has this ever happened in the past?
So you're asking Katie and I that?
No, ask Kevin,
Yeah,
sorry.
you know, I think on rare occurrences, Lucy, that does happen.
Yeah.
You know, there is a benchmark, and if you have enrollment in specific classes, it's less than that benchmark. It's really, really difficult to fit that into a schedule. But as Doug said, you know, oftentimes you can get creative. Oftentimes, if there's a commitment on the part of the student, there can be independent work. There can be collaboration with another teacher. So if you problem solve, oftentimes there's ways that you can work that out. But definitely, it's really, really hard to carry a class of 4 kids or 5 kids, you know, when you have a comprehensive high school of this type.
And I'm not saying this is the be-all answer, but I know that it was very common in Virginia because of the state's work around virtual learning, that it was very common practice at the secondary level to have a robust kind of virtual offering for courses that either we didn't have a teacher that was certified to teach it, or that, you know, we had 8 periods, but the child wanted 9 classes, you know, or the 8 that they wanted didn't fit because of all these conflicts and singletons. And I'm not saying that's like a silver bullet solution to all of these issues, but it doesn't seem to me like that's something we've really pursued in the past, and I think that's another option that we can offer folks. Again, everyone may not want it, but one of the ways we sold that to our learners and families in Virginia was, look how many like colleges, universities, and employers have now flipped to online training, online courses, and we don't want their first real experience with that to be after they leave us. If we're really serious about making them life ready and college ready and all these things, we should be looking for opportunities to do that. So it could end up being a win-win in this situation. But again, none of that says that we've got that to offer right now. I guess I wanted you to know our thinking and our looking at maybe this challenge being an opportunity to try to work with more children. And certainly everything can't be offered virtually. Some things lend themselves to that better than others.
It seems like in our reimagining efforts that teaching SAT prep is probably not a right course because of where things are versus using that person for something more critical. You know, it just seems like there's plenty of SAT availability in private sector or even in probably online, but it just seems like, you know, to have a important math teacher teaching that is kind of odd.
I think we've had these same conversations, and again, my experience, which isn't extensive, is, to your point, Bob, everywhere that I've been, any preparation for SATs has been kind of done in the maybe after-school tutoring,
right.
or parents find the resources on their own, and here, for whatever reason, not judging it, we've programmed it in, and now it competes with other things that children want. And don't hear me say I don't want children to do well on their SATs, but you know, in an era where more and more colleges are doing test score blind admission processes, or maybe even not doing it, I know it's a state requirement, and it's part of what gets reported, and so we'll continue to support it, but should a child really be taking that instead of something? Yes.
Well, and the kids don't get to pick that, because I know that they actually get placed in it and then get removed from a class they really wanted. Just know from personal experience.
I'm glad you brought that up too. Deb, Katie, myself, others that are kind of newer.
This was prior
we're,
to you, Deb.
we're uncovering these
I'm
things,
shaking my head yes,
and
Mom.
you know, right now we're not really judging them to be good or bad, but we're kind of asking the question why. And we're not getting a lot of answers that really maybe justify, it's kind of like when I got here and I couldn't figure out, why do we have so many study halls? Because we haven't had study halls in any district I've worked in. We always tried to get learners doing things while they were here. And the answer was given, but it wasn't one that really supported maybe what was best for them. It was kind of just like, well, that's the way the schedule works, and they have to be somewhere supervised. And so I think, kind of knowing that is the starting point. Whether we have a ready-made solution for everybody in this budget cycle and school year is something, again, we can't promise. But I can commit to you, we're all trying. We are committed to trying to make that work. We told you all that when we made the reductions, and that is our commitment at this point. And Kevin is, working double time to try to make all the staffing pieces work and advertising everything that's vacant. So if anyone knows of a part-time Latin teacher that wants to come work with us, hey, send them Kevin's way.
We'd be glad to sign that individual up as soon as possible.
Isn't that a course that we could look to have outsourced?
That's quite possibly, Bob. I think that would be something worth exploring. And, as Doug mentioned, with the
Rather
online
than
classes.
half a person or a tenth of a person, it would seem like for Latin 5, I think you're talking about, right, or 4, or whatever it is.
Latin 4, we have one student right now.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, there's kind of there ought to be for one student, there ought to be an alternate way that we can provide that.
Mhm.
And
rather than
I have
hiring.
reached out to the high school principal consortium as well as representative from virtual high school. It's not offered on Ingenuity, which is one of the online things that we do have.
We also send kids for swimming at another school. We also send kids for
We're one of the
courses.
last high schools in the shoreline to offer it, but
Yeah.
maybe people will send them to us. I
Well,
don't
and Bob, I think it's a good point for 2 reasons. One, because the immediate circumstance, but the other is anytime you're one deep in a specialty area, you're just one retirement or resignation or medical accident away from the program kind of being dismantled. And that long-term is not a good place for us to be positioned. And in my experience, world languages was one place where a lot of these virtual offerings were very helpful because, my last district, we had like the Spanish and the French and the main languages, but we had learners that wanted Mandarin Chinese and they wanted Arabic and they wanted things, and we weren't gonna find a teacher to do that, and it wouldn't have been cost effective because we wouldn't have had enough, but thankfully, you guys have heard me talk about this in the reimagining. While we've had our nose to the grindstone doing what we've always done, there are very innovative people and very profit-minded people who have developed these resources. And I just think we have to be willing to take advantage of those and say that school and education may look slightly differently for the learner who's maybe taking a course that way to kind of supplement what they're doing. And I just think that's the future, and we ought to be doing it anyway. But in this particular situation, I think what you say makes
Well, I
complete
just
sense,
got
because
you.
we don't want to deny folks the opportunity to take Latin. I mean, to me, that would be disingenuous to those that have already invested some time in it. But if we don't have a teacher, we don't have a teacher.
And, I just got something from World Languages or something. They have these off programs that provide world languages for, online for a variety of people. So it might be something, and if there's a person that's taken 4 years of Latin, they can probably handle it online. I mean, I took 4 years of Latin. I mean, the last year is like either boring or terrible, but, I don't know what they like anymore, but it's time to, for one student, we should find a way to find that student the best we can have, rather than trying to get somebody to cover it for it. It seems like there might be a program online that would give him a better or her a better.
Just as a matter of correction though, Bob, there are 2, Katie just looked it up, I don't want to offend anyone that's watching. There are 2 in Latin 4, but just in case somebody's watching, because that is important, I don't want that to get out there.
But I mean, it's also, the thing is, same is true in Spanish, and same is true in other areas that, since I have all these 4 kids in high school, I get a lot of concern that, at 4th of July picnics about what's going on. And, Well, I think the coding issue was one where they compared that to SAT, and, and the kids want stuff. They don't want a review course, and I think we'd be better off giving them another math class or another science class, that will help them on their SAT more than the review course.
This isn't something that we can do this year though, right? You just said you can't change the master schedule.
Well,
this year.
let me make sure I clarify that. What we're not changing is the fact that we have 8 periods and they meet for so many minutes and all of that. So there are some limitations on the administration. But the suggestions of possibly not doing everything exactly the way we did it last year, this we are open to, and also doing them perhaps in more creative ways. Because again, if someone legitimately signed up, or I guess was placed in SAT prep, I don't think our message needs to be preparing for the SAT is something that's not important. I think is there another way we could help you get that support, but not make it like a full course in your schedule, so that we could open up another opportunity to you? Because oftentimes if you're being placed in that class, my suspicion would be, it's not because everyone thinks you're gonna get a perfect score on the SAT based on your prior academic. It's probably they think you're struggling and you could use some assistance. And so now, are we depriving someone of an opportunity that may, I don't know, change their outlook about school and what they think about it, and then conversely, then other learners get more choices. And so, again, to your question, we probably can't fix everything we want to fix in this cycle, but we're definitely going to try to do
It seems
as
like
much
this
as
is a
we can.
perfect opportunity to reimagine the schedule.
Yes, it is.
And it,
No pun.
and that pun was intended,
Yeah.
but it's time, because of the critical nature of this reduction, different opportunities for different courses, even the schedule, if SAT's at night, the teacher's at night. There's other ways we can handle this stuff. It just seems like you have an opportunity to do it because you're forced to do things that are not normal. It's time to fix some of these things and change schedules. If SATs, maybe it's done at night, maybe it's done at 6 a.m. or something.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let the kids, let them have a full schedule.
Any other thoughts?
Changes topic just a little bit. I don't want to put Kevin on the spot, but what are we doing for teachers for professional development between now and the fall that are moving significantly from positions that could be like 4 or 5 grades below or above?
So, thank you for asking that, Lindsay. I think we have an obligation, if teachers are transferring to, a grade level 3 or 4 grade levels from where they're currently teaching, or even greater, to provide some professional development. So I'm going to be working with the building principals on that, and hopefully we can provide those teachers, with professional development. I mean, they're certified in those areas, but we all know there's a world of difference between 1st grade and 6th grade, or kindergarten and 5th grade. So we do have an obligation to support those teachers when they move.
Yeah, my big concern was the real change in OG at the elementary school level. And, we're looking at some teachers moving from the middle school down. And I don't know how much professional development we can do between now and then, but at least whatever you can do, and if you need to come to the board, I just think that we need to do what we need to do for the teachers that are staying, that really need it. Because as much as you are certified in something, there's apprehension, and we've got teachers that were so willing to move, and I think that needs to be really celebrated and supported, so.
Usually, I would just want to speak from experience being in here in this district too, but I'm sure that there will be mentors, a mentor system, so that usually that first year the teachers will have a mentor that's part of the team already, that they just go to. And the teams, I can speak for the elementary level, just usually collaborate and work together. So it's not like you're completely off on your own. So I'm confident that you guys will transition them well.
And I think to Kevin's earlier point and to your question, Lindsay, even though the scenario you described could happen, that's not our first out of the gate what we're trying to make happen. We're trying to look, or if it were, it would be that someone had some prior experience down at those primary grade levels. Again, we don't know that will happen in every instance, and obviously their certification says they're qualified to do that. But qualified and really kind of feeling ready, I think is what you're
That's
getting
my
at,
difference,
are two very different things. And not just for the teacher, but the learners, we want them to have the best experience. So I think that's where the voluntary transfer is the first lever before the involuntary, and even looking at if there is movement, does it really make sense to take someone from 6th grade to kindergarten, even though their teaching license says that they can? I think those are the kind of things we're looking at.
Doug, are we able to keep our commitment to the STEM and STEAM programs?
I guess I haven't seen anything that we've recommended or suggested that is doing any less for those programs. Again, the coding has been brought up, and so we're trying to make a solution to that. But I think we're just as committed to those programs as we have been in the past. STEAM is a very broad umbrella. Some people put all the core math and science courses into that. Some look at more the elective space, the robotics and the coding and things of that nature. And again, the A in STEAM is the arts piece to it. And I'm not aware of any decrease in the arts at any levels, K through 12. If you recall, we didn't reduce at the elementary with the related arts, which we thought about doing, but we didn't. And so I think those programs at that level are going to be as vibrant. I mean, if you're asking me, some of you know I'm a former AP physics teacher, so I am definitely committed to that as an educator, and I think our team is as well.
The other thing, we try to establish a talented and gifted program at Strong School, and I know that the teacher that was doing that is retired. Are we going to be able to meet those special needs for that?
We will be, and whether that is done the exact same way it was done when the prior person was in it, marrying that basically to the enrichment position, that may work, but this goes back to the qualifications of different individuals. But yeah, to me, I don't even feel like that's a choice. I just feel like that's something we have to do.
Yeah, I think as we look towards the reimagining, it's bringing those kids that have those needs to go beyond, that will leave to go to Choate or something, or, if we can handle some of those needs earlier on in Strong School, then we can get them engaged in the high school.
No, I think you're exactly right. In fact, in a perfect world, if the learner-centered work takes off the way we hope it does, I think that the children you're talking about who have historically maybe needed a gifted pull-out program or something to supplement kind of the standard program, that need is going to become less and less, because to your point, they're going to be able to go at their own pace and access a lot more of what maybe now they're feeling somewhat bored in some of their kind of standard classes that don't really get to more kind of accelerated or advanced options until they get to high school. And so I think it's beyond just a person who is the quote-unquote gifted person, but it's more the overall mindset of the district and saying, are we okay with certain children who feel like they're ready to advance in certain areas to kind of let them loose and do that? And I think that would be great, because I think all children have gifts in different areas, and to let them do that in all areas would be something that we're striving for.
Any other thoughts? In the past, and Jamie and I have brought this up, the students who are more career-oriented, and how that's handled in the district, and if there's any thought to how we can expand their opportunities without necessarily bringing programs into the school, but perhaps looking outside of the school where these programs exist and having some type of a partnership.
I think that should be part of what we do. And again, I don't want to put Katie on the spot, but the action team that she's leading for the strategic plan that I think, Bob, you're a part of, and others, that's a lot of what we're looking at with that in two ways. One, I think, would be there's a program out there that we don't offer, and either do any of the local magnet schools or any of that, and we just try to find a way for our learner who wants that program to get it. But then the second piece to that is also the kind of job shadow, work-based learning, internship experience, where they could have, and we want to be able to support both of those things. I don't think we're currently doing that. I don't want to say that we are, but I think that's what we all would like to be doing. I don't know if you all want to say any more about that.
Well, funny that you mentioned it. Go ahead, Katie.
So we're actually really looking at our capstone project and the whole way our students approach that, their senior year, and even starting to look at it their junior year, if not earlier. Mainly in the careers class that every senior takes their senior year with Matt Thompson, who also happens to be our careers counselor. So we're sort of revamping that and really trying to find out how do we, in the first half of the year, really support them finding out what is their path after they graduate. Is it college? Is it a career? Is it military? Is it something totally different that they're going to be the first pioneers actually doing? So then actually using advisors throughout our school to help them make connections with mentors in the community, even outside of our community, so that they, while they're still here, can really sort of focus what their capstone project, their culminating project before they graduate, on something that really, truly speaks with them and connects with them, and is going to help them be, you know, leaders once they leave our school, not just in academics, but in whatever field truly sparks their passion.
You said you don't do that until junior, senior year? Yeah, I was thinking more, how do you get students into career development, career knowledge and experiences before that? Because there are some students that know right from the get-go that they may not know which career, but they know they're going to be doing more of a hands-on type of a program,
Right.
a career.
And I think that is our goal. I think it's
Yeah.
just, you know, checking it so that it's a little bit manageable before we really just start implementing it and figuring out how that works. But we are looking at other districts in our conference and in the state that do have similar programs to that, where it does start, you know, your freshman year, and as you're entering in, how do you follow those career paths or interests, and
Yep.
how do you do that in a way that's also flexible to students as they change as they're growing older too, you know, because we
Right.
don't want to lock them in a career path
Right.
freshman year, and then suddenly, you know, maybe they thought they were in math, but they're actually this fabulous musician, and how do we transition there?
Right.
So absolutely the vision we're looking at.
Yeah, I think to your point, Lucy, I think if you read some of those bullets that we're trying to operationalize in the strategic plan, identifying your passions and what you like, in my opinion, should start well before you get into high school. And so the high school staff is more prepared to deal with this, and maybe then they're old enough to actually go out on job sites and do some of these things. And also to what you said, you and Jay were talking about, if there's an opportunity to plug somebody into a program that certifies for a particular trade, and they could earn that certification or even get part of it done while they were, you know, still in high school, I think we want to support that. I think that's part of our vision for the future. And to Katie's point, that doesn't mean that if they get certified, say, in cosmetology or auto mechanics or whatever, that has to be their lifelong calling. But they at least graduate with that option as their anchor point. And none of that is saying they can't ever go to college or do other things. In fact, in my experience, the little bit I've been here and in Virginia, a lot of these programs are really being done well at the community college level. And so I think that's another partnership opportunity for us. If it's something that, like, we really can't offer, and they could maybe spend part of their day connecting with the community college in one of those fields, or other places. I don't want to limit it to that. I know a lot of investment nationally and at the state level in the community colleges into what historically had been called trade schools. Now you see it at the community college level, because they've kind of doubled down on those investments. And I know our community colleges here have a lot of very good programs. You even heard Samantha talk about some of that with some of the MTA learners. So I think there's great opportunity here for that.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. Item A, we had talked about a retreat, but we also talked about a self-evaluation for the board. And I think I'm gonna have Lindsay tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so we had said set Board of Ed self-evaluation meeting. I was hoping to hear back from Nick Russo from Cape by today on, like, give us like 5 or 6 dates or 3 or 4 dates that would work. And I hadn't heard back from him yet. So rather than setting a date, if we could keep in mind a Saturday in September, October, and I could send out a survey to everyone to see if we could set a an evaluation just a day for that, and we're looking at going off campus from here. And I believe Powder Ridge should be available that day. Would give us a chance to really kind of reflect on what our goals and objectives are. Those haven't been, updated, but I think it would give us a chance to really look at what we've been doing and what we want to do.
So we could follow up with more information and an email, and when you get the
I can
pieces
send a
together.
survey out, maybe next meeting we could set that date. But we'd have Cade come out, rep from Cade come out and help facilitate with us. And Nick's been wonderful. I don't know if you've seen on the emails, he's been trying to help us get our logins for Cade. Has everyone been able to log in or checked? Okay, 'cause all of our emails and passwords were wrong, so they actually went in and fixed all of those this week. So you'll be able to log in for any webinars or trainings that they offer. We don't have to send that to Meg anymore to sign up for those. And if you have any issues, just email Nick back, or I believe the last person who emailed us with the passwords.
Mhm.
Can you send me Nick's? I haven't gotten an email from.
You're not on that one? Okay, that might have been the week before, that might be why.
Okay,
I'll forward it to you.
thank you. Yeah.
Okay, item number B is approval of committee member appointees. Kim had been asking for a while for another member on the pension committee. John was good to volunteer. So we do have another committee member that I would like to recommend, Jim Armstrong. He was recently put into the finance. He was elected through Middlefield for the finance committee, and I would like to recommend him for the pension committee, because he actually does have an excellent financial background. And this would be for a one-year term. So I would like to have a motion to accept Jim Armstrong for the pension committee.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's Jim. We also had an opening on our finance committee for a board-appointed position. Sorry, not for an elected position. So Peter Neidhart came forward from Middlefield. He has an extensive business background, so I would like to recommend Peter for the finance committee.
What's his last name?
Neidhart, Neidhardt. Neidhardt. We'll get these all updated once we get the approvals. I'll have Meg send out at least those that we've got so far.
So that's your appointment as chair.
That's an appointment
Okay.
as chair, yes. This is not an elected position, it's appointed,
So do we need to vote on that?
yes.
Okay, so I'll make that motion.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
Okay, if I, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I also have a couple of other appointments. We're going to be using our building committee, I'm hoping, very extensively coming up in the future. We have the field house, we have Picket Lane. Hopefully we will have some restructuring, reorganizing of our buildings within the district. So I would like to recommend a couple of people to be put onto that committee. Nick Viella actually came forward and asked, which is great. We don't always get people who volunteer like that. So he would represent people from Middlefield. So I would like to have a motion to accept Nick Viella for the building committee.
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And the second recommendation for the building committee would be Howie Weisberg. He is from Durham, and he has quite a background. He's a professional engineer for 27 years. He's been city engineer in Meriden for 8 years, director of public works for 3 years. He works at the DOT. He's developed and reviewed site plans, utility plans, traffic management plans, managed numerous construction projects. So he's also a member of DIMIAB. So he'd be perfect to be on there for all the construction issues that would be coming up. So I would like to recommend Howie for the building committee.
So moved.
Seconded by John, seconded by Jason. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, good. That's all that I have now. I may have some more coming up in the future. Thank you. The next item is the supports.
Do we have changes for other committees, because we're losing Missy and Becca?
No,
We're gonna wait?
I'll send those out. I'll just kind of send something out after. Yeah, we do have some board members who have left, so we'll have to fill in those positions on those committees, and we'll get those in, and I'll send out some emails and see how we feel about it, how we feel for those positions. The next item is support staff grievance hearing. We are here this evening to consider the grievance brought by the Regional School District 13 Support Staff Union, Local Number 4914, on March 16th, 2022. We will proceed first with a presentation by the union related to the grievance at issue. Who will be presenting or appearing on behalf of the union for the purpose of the board meeting? Can I have your name, please?
My name is Elizabeth Guerra. I'm a representative of AFT Connecticut.
Okay, what was your name again?
Elizabeth
Elizabeth.
Guerra.
Okay.
Would you rather sit at the table, so because you got a lot
I
of,
have some
Yeah.
papers, I have this spread out, so I don't know what's.
you'd be more than welcome to join us if that's okay.
Yeah.
And when she sits down, what we'll do is we'll just go right around the table and introduce ourselves as well. Okay. So the board members will introduce themselves. We'll start with Amanda.
Amanda Batty.
Jason Stahl,
Maura Caramello.
Bob Moore.
Lindsay Dahlheimer?
Lucy Petrella.
Jamie Rohraback.
John Mel.
Mariah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. So, union, you may now proceed with your presentation.
Before I proceed, I have some documents. I don't know if you all had received anything about the grievance beforehand. I prepared some information. And I apologize in advance. I don't know if I have enough for everyone, but if I don't, then I can always email those documents, I guess, to him and,
Board members can also ask questions. I just wanted to let you know that.
so, this is just one packet. Some of them are bound, some of them aren't, so just if one pass that down.
This is just one, do I have to take one of every?
Nope. Okay, that's it. There's just one page.
Okay, I'll share with Lucy.
Which one? Do you have one more you can share? We can share, it's fine.
I have one last one for you though.
Okay, she's got another one.
Amanda.
What is this? This is extra?
And that's just, a
No,
list.
just one sheet, take one and pass it down.
Just take one of
Just
those
one.
more.
Take one
One
of
sheet.
these.
Of that one.
Got it. Because you guys didn't have coffee tonight. Drinking
Sorry.
coffee.
I don't know what happened to that. We'll work on that, I'm sorry.
Summer glitch.
Oh, mine, Doug.
We didn't have the doors unlocked in time either.
All right, so you all should have two documents. One document is Michigan Law Review. It is a case law, which I'll explain what the reasoning or why we're referring to that. And the second is a list of 20 names of bargaining unit members, and so I'll explain what that list is as well. So just by way of just a brief introduction about what this grievance is about. This is, the union is, believes that the Board of Education has violated Appendix B, Section 5 of the contract. Appendix B, Section 5 of the contract specifically states, retirement benefits shall be provided in accordance with the Regional School District Number 13 pension plan. It makes a reference to this summary plan description that's located in, on your website. And so I represent, as mentioned earlier, I represent the support staff, so our teachers, assistants, and clerical workers, people who work directly with students and in some cases with students of the highest needs. They do this work every single day with a smile on their face, and they're ready to help move students one step closer to any academic or social goals that they may have. Some of you all may know the work of our teachers' assistants and our clerical staff, some don't. Those who have had a moment to ever interact with or have a student who has needed a teacher's assistant, or also known as paraeducators, they know that they felt a real connection and gratitude for their work. So I'm here presenting this grievance on behalf of these workers today, because they're the ones who care really deeply for their students and oftentimes end up putting themselves last. And we just ultimately want to ensure that our contract is being enforced, and the different parts, the different articles of our contract are, our folks have equal access to it and equitable access to it. So the union's position is that the Board of Education has arbitrarily and capriciously administered this plan. So on that list, you have a list of 20 people who have come forward over the course of the past, since March, since we first received an inquiry. When we had our step 1 hearing, the list was only of 5 people. Our step 2 hearing, I think the list was maybe of 15 or 19 people. And now at step 3, our list is at 20 people. The list continues to grow because more people are coming forward, realizing that they have not been told about the pension plan, or don't start contributing to the pension plan until years later. Based on the summary plan description, folks become eligible for the pension immediately after being at the Board of Education, or employed by the Board of Education for 1 year, or a specific given number of hours in a year. And so we had requested some information beforehand about who is eligible, how do people find out if they're eligible or not. And what we've learned is that it changes. It all depends on who you know, and unfortunately what we kept hearing from our members was, it depends if you're liked or not. So if you're liked by someone down in central office, whomever happens to be administering the plan, then you'll be told the day after you become eligible, you get sent an email, here's information, or someone gives you a personal phone call. In some other occasions, you don't hear about it. We actually had one member come forward and tell us, or a few members, after one member shared her story. She came to the district in the late 90s, and she was a young mom, and she looked at this position as the best position for her and her family and the circumstances that they were in. And she really just wanted a job that aligned with her kids' school schedules. And so when she had inquired with someone by the name of Eileen Bankston, who I think was the plan administrator at that point, about the pension plan, she was told, "Oh, you don't want to be a part of that. It's not worth it." And so she subsequently signed a form that said that she declined the pension. We have other folks who have said that they also had the same experience, where they had approached someone in central office about this and were told, it's not really worth it, don't worry about it. Some folks were also told that they weren't eligible because they were 10-month employees and was only eligible for 12-month employees, which is not the case based on the summary plan description. So depending on who you come to, who you are yourself, you have a different experience about how you would be able to enter into the pension plan, which is really the main argument behind our grievance. What we're contemplating here, or our hope is under this grievance, is not to change contract language, because our contract is not prescriptive in that it doesn't specify how payroll should be done, right? That's just, we have salaries that are negotiated or wages that are negotiated, and then it's the onus of the board in order to figure out how payroll is done, right? Same thing with health insurance. What's negotiated are the particulars specifically around premium cost share and what type of health insurance, but how frequently folks can enroll, when people should enroll, things of that sort is not specifically detailed in the contract, because the understanding is that the Board of Ed is hiring folks in order to do that. And so what we're looking for is for our pension to be, there should be some streamlined process, right? And we still haven't, it's not clear to us. Even on an information request, we submitted the request for the information back in March. We didn't receive anything until June. And the information request was really clear. It was, can you just submit any information to us about any written notifications from the Board of Education to members, from the plan administrator, to let people know they're eligible for the pension. What we received were a handful of emails, from 2016 moving forward, after our member had inquired directly with someone else. Some other emails where the plan administrator actually said, hey, yes, you are eligible, today is your day. Here is all the information that you should fill out. Please, if you are interested or you're not interested, if you're going to accept or decline your pension, please fill out the form either way, which is actually different than what was told to us in the grievance hearing, which was that folks only had to opt into the pension plan, not officially decline. The assumption was that you decline the pension plan if you didn't sign up for it. So again, there's a lot of confusion about how this plan is being administered, what are the systems, and so now we have a group of 20 people who are interested, who have had years of potential contributions that could have been made that weren't made. And the years differences anywhere between 2 years from the time that they were eligible to about 10 years, which is a huge difference when you're looking at your late 50s, you've only been in the district, maybe you've been in the district for 20 years, and you just started making contributions 5 years ago. And you're trying to catch up, but there's no ability for you to catch up. You're looking at retirement, and the line to get there seems much more further now than if you would have started to make those pension contributions early on. And when we had, going back to just the information request that we received, we were also told that sometimes, depending on the case, maybe the differences between how many years, when folks would have been eligible and made contributions or received contributions from the Board of Education versus in comparison to when they started to make contributions, it wouldn't make a huge difference. But this is a defined pension plan, benefit plan. So it's about the amount of time that you've actually been making contributions, not about your overall years of employment, which makes a difference. So it does make a difference. And we actually have someone who recently retired who was on this list, and she had another colleague who came in around the same time that she did, but started making contributions right away. And the difference between what their pension payments are, it's like a difference of like $100-something, which when you're on a fixed income, every little bit counts. And so those are some of the considerations. We sat down again like a group every single day. Folks are calling me up or union leadership to let them know, like, I think I'm part of this group, I'm not sure. And the reason why we have that second form in front of you all is there's a question here about whether or not our grievance is time barred. And there's a lot of case law that talks about continuation of violations, which basically means that every single time the Board of Education, in our opinion, every single time the Board of Education fails to inform someone of their eligibility into the pension plan, the clock restarts. So folks are constantly becoming eligible, are not being informed, or we don't know if they're being informed, again, because that information has not been provided to us. We only find out if those folks come directly to us to let us know that they're eligible and they don't know. And then just the last part that I wanted to just bring up is just about, the union's position is really that the district has an obligation to inform members and employees of these plan benefits, just like they would inform any other employee of these benefits. If I'm being completely honest, a lot of our members, a lot of the folks who are on this list really feel like they're being discriminated against, right? A lot of them were younger women when he started in the district. Their level of education or the requirements of education in terms of their work is just a high school diploma. And so oftentimes they felt like they were being misled by folks when they were asking questions about their pension plan, or just the assumption that, they're gonna be too busy to go to a meeting, or gonna be too busy to ask a question, was taken advantage of. And so in those moments, they didn't have the opportunity to really learn. There's a few folks who are on this list. Some of these dates are in 2010. There's actually 3 dates in particular, or 3 people in particular, who all signed up for the pension around the same day. And it was because the district, back in 2010, around this time, there was evidently an issue with plans. And the district decided to hold what was told to me was like a fair or a meeting about all fringe benefits. And so folks were actually meeting directly with retirement representatives who said, you actually have a pension plan, you should sign up. And so they used that meeting to actually sign up. But they learned in that meeting that they had a pension plan, they received their paperwork, discussed it with family members or whomever, and then subsequently moved forward and were able to bring that paperwork in and start their payments. Had that meeting not occurred, and my understanding was just a one-off, they wouldn't have known about that pension plan either. So these are our understanding. This is money that you will allocate every single year for pension, right? For folks' benefits that are not being appropriately either directed, or folks don't really know about it. So I know that many folks ask, well, how did you not know? Like, did you not talk to other people? Like, is it just that it's just so unique? And like I mentioned, some folks just received bad information from people in central office. Other folks just, through the grapevine, talking to other people, being told bad information, and overall, if it's not them sending an email and being the right person to send the right email to, they wouldn't receive the information. Let me just make one last point, and then, so our remedy. So the remedy that we seek is to make our members whole for their contributions. So the contributions that that were not made by the Board of Education from the moment that they would have been eligible to when they actually started making contributions based on the date that was that they started to make those contributions. And that date is written on all their pension forms, which the union would be able to provide that information in the future. The Board of Education is interested in that. And then just for the Board of Education to create some type of system, some very, very clear system, just like they do with health insurance, where if you know that you're gonna get, on your year anniversary, you're going to send an email, or whatever the case may be, so folks can know this. I'm sure that the 20 people on this list will make sure that any new person that comes in will know about it. And that's just what we do as a community, right? We let each other know what's going on. But our position is really that because the Board of Education is the plan administrator as set forth by this document, they should really be the ones who are creating those systems and ensuring that our folks at least are educated or know that there's a benefit that's available to them without any random, additional narrative like folks have received in the past, just told, hey, you're eligible, here's the information, here's your application, and it's up to then that person to make a decision about what they're going to move forward and do. And that's it for me.
Okay, are there any questions? Any board members have any questions?
Is there anything contractually that says that that there has to be a regular notification, or how is the notification process even in the contract?
It doesn't say anything, it just says that the Board of just says that there's a plan administrator. Give me 1 second. The plan administrator is responsible for the day-to-day administration and operation of the plan. The Board of Education of the school district has appointed a pension committee to handle many of the responsibilities. For example, the plan administrator maintains the plan records, including your benefit information, provides you with forms you need to complete for the plan participation, and directs the payment of your benefit at the appropriate time.
So upon employment, does the employee receive all that information?
I don't know.
Oh.
I would assume, right, because folks, again, this is where we're kind of in this place where we don't know. The assumption is when folks, or what I've seen in other school districts, is folks receive a packet of information, like a new hire
So that's what I'm
packet.
asking. Do they receive that? Do we have an answer?
Well, I think unfortunately, no one really was here at many of the higher dates, right?
That's correct.
From what I'm
They
seeing,
do
because it's a long.
receive the packet now.
I was
I
gonna say,
can't
so
speak
now
to the
they, right.
past.
And what do we do now to notify the employees of this pension? I'm assuming,
We can talk after, you can ask Liz questions. or-
oh, I'm sorry, I don't know.
It's
the
okay,
process.
or I
I'll
can
do
ask,
this
I
now.
can answer now, yeah, so, okay, what is the question?
So I'm just wondering, to go along with what John's saying, is what do we do now as opposed to what we did differently or past employees did differently when many of these people started to know, like, do employees know now
So,
that a year into their
I
employment?
don't know what was in the new hire packet in the past, but right now, the new hire packet has the pension information in it, we've created
Kim,
frequently
can I
asked.
interrupt you for 1 second? Are we asking questions of the union rep and then going,
Board members can ask questions, and then if the administration would like to respond at this point, they may do so. So,
because I
yes,
think
they
we're
can
asking
answer.
questions of the union. If we have questions for Kim, we can do that,
Yeah.
when we pause.
Well, from what she just read, you cannot, like,
It's,
because my question, I'm just trying to compare what she's stating to what we do now. So I
It's
think the only
simple.
person who can answer that is someone who
We
works
included in a
here
new hire
now.
packet, right along with like the health insurance paperwork, everything's right in there, frequently asked questions. And then it's also on the website under staff resources. And we do, have had meetings in the past with the support staff unions. And also, it is, I believe, I would have to double check, but I believe it's on our open enrollment. We do have different other benefits that are offered, and if you're interested, check it and contact central office. So it is, I believe it's on that there too. That's all been recent, so I can't speak as to what happened in the past.
Elizabeth, did this issue come up in our last contract
it
negotiations?
did not,
That was my next question.
it did not.
So how many contractual cycles have we gone through since this has been going on that the union hasn't caught up on this?
So we just found out about this in March. So the way that it came to me was, I believe, not to shout out names, but I'll shout out names. Marilyn Sheehan, who called me up and said, I'm curious, I wanna know, I believe she said this, getting ready to
I'm sorry,
retire.
If we're gonna talk about a specific employee.
Oh,
we'll
you
do
can't.
that.
Yeah, we
can't.
can't.
Yeah, you can't mention names.
I mean, it's a class grievance, right, so.
Okay, but we can't speak to that employee in
Okay,
public
that's
session.
fine, I'm just expressing how we first learned about this. So, this one union member came to me and said, I'm planning on retiring, I don't know, no, it wasn't Marlon, it was actually another person. She said, I'm looking at retiring, I'm, just planning out my life. I'm in my late 50s, and, I just realized that although I've been making contributions since, for almost 12 years now, that there's 10 years that I missed. And I was like, I don't understand how you missed 10 years. That's a huge chunk of time, in which she had said, well, I had inquired in the past when I first started. They told me that I wasn't eligible, or I was told that the plan just didn't, we weren't eligible for the plan. And I said, who's this person? And they were just like, I don't remember. It was just whomever was in charge of our plan back in those years. I would keep asking, and I kept being told that I was not eligible. And so we asked the rest of the union, and we said, who else has a similar situation where they didn't start contributing after the year? And so that's where we started off with a list of 5 people, and that list of 5 people grew to a larger list. So we didn't know that this was an issue previous to March. We thought that everything was okay. If I'm being completely honest, even folks who have retired have called me up themselves and said, I'm also part of this group. I retired, I just assumed, it was just kind of my bad luck, I should have known better. But they also felt really concerned that this continued to happen, and there are other folks as well.
Elizabeth, if everything is in the current package now, does that satisfy your current concern, one of your concerns?
I would say, as long as there's something that's streamlined, right? So if it's on the current package and folks know that they're eligible, so what we received, there were some emails from a board employee from folks, literally letting them know that they are eligible as of this date. So after their year or whatever number of hours they completed, this person sent an email out.
Do you want more than what's in the current hiring?
Well, we want what everyone else is getting throughout the district.
No, like,
So we're not.
right now, in the package you get when somebody's hired, there's a provision of all the benefits, including pension. Do you want something beyond that?
I would say that if that's in the packet, that's, I think, a good start. Also, if in an open enrollment, the ability for folks to enroll into the pension plan is also included in there with certainty, I think that should be sufficient in terms of that part of the remedy.
Right.
That's what we really want. We want folks to know that, just like they have access to open enrollment on health insurance every single year, that's not written into the contract, they have the same access to their
And
pension.
the second issue is you want to be able to have these 20 employees provide, the board provide their matching, and they will provide their contributions as well.
I think the question,
It's a two-sided thing.
It is a two-sided
If they're gonna
thing,
provide,
correct.
if the board's gonna match, there has to be a contribution to catch up from the other employee. Is that what you're asking?
I would say that we would hope that the board would pay for those years that are missing. And on the union's end, or each individual member end, it would be, I know that many folks would say yes, like they would want to catch up and pay that amount.
So you're not asking for a class action settlement, you're asking for an individual settlement
These,
for each person.
for the people that are listed on here.
Yeah, but we don't know if they wanna pay their contribution either.
I
We
would have
won't
to
know
talk to
that
them.
until there's an agreement.
Until there's, yeah, if there's an agreement, if there's a settlement, absolutely, then we would talk to them. At this point, we haven't even gotten to that point. But I'm sure that if I spoke to each one of those people individually, each person would have their own response. I don't want to say like, yes affirmatively, and then get my members calling me afterwards and just.
Well, it may not be cost effective either
Mhm. Absolutely.
for, you know, a contribution to get the return on the
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was one of my questions
pension.
as well.
It may not be cost effective for the individual employee.
Absolutely. I mean, for some folks who are, they're talking about 10 years, right, to play catch-up for 10 years, what the cost of that might be, it may be cost prohibitive for them, for being honest. But we don't know what every person's individual financial status is, right? And so for some, it might be cost prohibitive, and for others, they'll figure out a way to make that work. I'm not 100% clear about.
How many times has the pension been negotiated within that 10-year period, though?
We don't negotiate our pension, we don't negotiate pension during contract negotiations.
They're separate, I understand, but when was the last time it was negotiated?
I don't know. I've been representing this group since 2016, and it hasn't been negotiated since then.
Do we know what that is?
We don't typically, it's just the pension plan, we don't typically negotiate.
It's not negotiated here?
No, because
Those
it's,
pension benefits aren't negotiated.
no, it's the defined benefit pension plan, and it is what it is. There's like no match, where like a 401K where you might negotiate a match, that doesn't apply.
It hasn't changed.
Right. And
That
there's
would-
no
that
union
would-
member or president or anyone that has a formal sit-down with a new employee and lets them know what the contract provides. Because they should know what they're getting into.
Absolutely.
That's my point.
Absolutely. No, our last union president was here for about 25 years before she retired. I know that we have a network of building reps who talk with folks. I know that for some of the folks who are listed here, it was because they spoke with their building rep here in the high school who stopped in the hall and said, hey, are you part of our pension plan? And they would say, I don't know what that is, and they would educate them on that. But when folks start new here, my understanding is folks, are talked to about the union, they're given a contract, asked if they want to be a dues-paying member of the union, and then they go over the particulars. But to be completely honest, some folks are just like, okay, great, thank you, and then they'll keep going. And unless that person comes back to them and says, hey, did you sign up for your pension? It's been a year later, or if that person themselves, if they ask, oftentimes they may not know, or unless they got an email from central office, which some folks have received.
But to that point, whose responsibility is it? That's not outlined, it's not clear and definitive in that
And I think
contract. So, whose responsibility is it?
And I think
ultimately?
that's the question here, right?
Well,
Is it the
yeah.
plan administrator, or is it the union, right? Or is it both, right? Our position is that the plan administrator, they're the ones who folks would get all the paperwork from, all the applications, and et cetera. That's the people that they would get their information from. So folks have their contracts, people have access to their contracts, and certainly as members of a union, or just folks who work in a location where a union is present and there's a union contract, they should be informed about what their rights are. But certainly when it comes to, again, I keep going to this example of health insurance open enrollment, there's lots of signs, folks, everyone knows about it, right? So what makes health insurance open enrollment different? And again, it's not specified. The open enrollment period or any of those details are not written into our contract. How is that different than a pension? It's still a fringe benefit, it still was negotiated, folks should still receive some type of information from the plan administrator that, hey, by the way, there's open enrollment, or hey, by the way, there's a change in your life, and now you change your health insurance benefits.
But health insurance is completely different. I mean, the health insurance today is something that.
It changes every year.
Yeah,
That's the point of open enrollment.
But it has specific enrollment dates.
Yeah.
They're specific.
Right. These dates would be different for every single employee, and is it the
Right.
responsibility of the district to notify that person on the day of that 1 year of hire? That is the debate. I would like to see something perhaps a little bit more in line with what teachers do, teachers' professional responsibility. We have endorsement codes we need to keep updated. That's on us. That is our responsibility. If we don't update and pay the money to be endorsed, that's our fault. But again, I don't know what the solution is. I do like the idea of correlating it to the health insurance. It's just that date's not gonna work for everybody, certainly.
And you can see the different hire dates are all over the place, right? So I think, like, if we're trying to figure out like a more streamlined, solution, if it's that folks are reminded, right, that there is this, like, open enrollment, right, and here you could sit with a pension rep and, or retirement rep and learn about your benefits, then folks have the access to that. But at least in my mind, right, the district has to fill this obligation, right? We've informed people about what's available for you all, and if you choose not to, then that's totally up to you as well.
Some people may not choose to go into a pension because they plan to be here for 3 or 4 years and move on. And it's not cost effective to get into a pension program where that money's tied up and there's no return on it. So we don't know that either in this list, that these folks have decided that it's not in their best interest at the time of employment to be in the pension plan, and then they're here 5 years later and say, well, I think I'm staying.
For sure. So that was actually one of the points that a plan administrator told a few of the folks on this list they said, well, you're not gonna be here for longer than 3 years. It's not cost effective to you. They've been here for 27, right?
Yeah,
And
but to
so-
Bob's point, though, not to interrupt you, that's a decision that,
Employees.
the employee's decision was to stay at that point, whether or not the administrator told them that or not, it's not relevant.
I think it is relevant though, because you are supposed to provide information, right?
It sounds like the information was still provided.
But I don't think information should be provided without any additional antidote, right? It's, you're eligible, here's your information. There shouldn't be any additional information about, whether or not you're gonna stay longer, whether or not the plan is, not the best plan or not. I think that's for each individual person to do their own research and figure that out. I don't think that any of that information should come with any additional narrative from whomever is delivering that information to them.
And I 100% agree with you, and I worked in this district for 10 years, and I actually worked with, personally, 15 of 20 of these people, and I know they're amazing and fabulous, and I think the years that they've been with this district speaks volumes to them as employees. But I can't help it, while I'm listening to this, I'm trying to decide, I'm wondering who the union reps were. I mean, this sounds to me like this was a union issue, that the union presidents at the time, and I'm assuming these people all belonged to a union all the way back from like 2008.
That's
There was
correct.
still, this was still a union. So why did that union president not notify these employees after their 1 year of employment here?
So-
I would think that's a grievance with the union.
So, my understanding is that some folks, whomever at that moment, went to talk to central office, folks would just be dissuaded, right? So they would be told, it's a pretty crappy plan, you really shouldn't be a part of it, or it's been.
That's hearsay though. That's
Right,
completely
absolutely.
hearsay.
And-
talk to their union rep after being told that by central office?
I don't know.
To-
And I mean,
to inform
certainly,
them.
like, I could bring those folks forward, at a later hearing if folks are interested, so they can give their, like, what their experience was. I'm just kind of conveying the message that they gave to me. I would believe that if the union representatives or if the union presidents at that time learned about that at that moment, they would have absolutely either filed a grievance, spoken to whomever in central office to figure out what the issue was.
Well, how many, and again, I don't have this history, but how many paraprofessionals or assistants do we usually have or have had in a given year? And again, I don't know if I'm supposed to ask that question, who I'm supposed to ask that to. Do you have that information?
I don't know, so I know that there's 48 bargaining unit members. I don't know what the breakdown is between powers and clerical staff.
Yeah, I think you have between 25 and 30, the rest are administrative assistants.
Well, my question being is, how come all the other employees knew of this pension plan?
And that's our argument around it being arbitrary and capricious, right? Some people knew, some people didn't know. It all depended on who you knew, if you had a good relationship. Again, hearsay, right? But we heard that, whomever was at central office at the moment, if they liked you or not, they would give you the information. If they didn't, they wouldn't, right? Again, this is what we're being communicated, but, that's not the best place to be put into.
I think at this time, unless we have different questions, we have, okay.
Do we have any documentation of what the new employee packets looked like for any of these 20 people at the time that they were hired? And if so, did they possibly sign something where they initially refused the pension plan just when they got all the new employee paperwork and then went on to say they didn't get any information about it?
So we didn't receive any information. I don't know, and it's also been like,
Liz, that's not true.
hold on, let me finish. We didn't receive any information about any new employee packets.
Oh,
We
you didn't.
did it, yeah.
Okay.
So we didn't receive that, and certainly, and honestly, like, you're talking about some folks who are here from 1987,
Oh,
so
no,
whatever
yeah.
information might have been given at that moment.
I get it, and I was 7 at that time, so, I'm just wondering, because I know when I had my first job, I signed a lot of paperwork, and I did a lot of it wrong. It was my tax forms, I had no idea what I was doing. I had just graduated from high school, and you had mentioned people just coming out of high school, the job only warranted a diploma at that time, so maybe, and I'm not saying there was, but there was a chance they had gone through the paperwork, not realizing what they were signed, and initially declined the pension plan up front, and then maybe that's why they weren't contacted a year after they had refused it. Is it our job to, after they've already refused it, reach out and say,
No.
did you really want to refuse it? And are we sure that none of these people did initially, maybe accidentally refuse the pension plan?
So no, that's not our position. Our position is if someone declined it, then the Board of Education did their job. This person, I know that of the information that we received from the Board of Education, there were two forms. One was a typed letter from someone who declined it. It was actually 3 years after her eligibility, when she would have been eligible. She was the person who I had said that had spoken to Eileen Bankston at central office and was told, it's not really worth it, so you really shouldn't sign up for the plan. And so she ended up subsequently writing a letter and then sending it to the Board of Ed. And then there was someone else who was on this list who there was actually, it looked like a form letter where she declined. The member who I first pointed out, years later ended up signing up for the plan, and it was because her tax attorney was just like, how come you're not in the pension plan? And she was like, I don't know, I didn't know any better. And so then she started to make, so our argument would not be for folks who have said no, for them to come back. No, that doesn't really make sense.
Does the contract state that there has to be a formal opt-out, or is it an opt-in and an opt-out could be just not responding?
So it doesn't say, and I think that's the question that even we're confused about, because in the information that we received from Kim, the person from the central office was sending emails actually had said, either way, if you're going to accept and enter into the pension plan, or if you're going to decline, please fill out the form.
Because if it's not explicitly stated in the contract, I would think that what central office was doing by contacting our employees was going above and beyond their contract. Does it say anything?
It doesn't say anything about that, no.
Thank you.
But again, some folks are receiving the email and some folks aren't. So this goes just back to this question about, just equity, right? So everyone should receive. If one person receives it, if one person is going to receive an email, then if it's a practice that's gonna be created, it should be created for everyone, not just for individual people.
So, you're right, I mean, when that practice has been in place since I got here and before I got here. So when you're speaking, I wanna make sure people realize this goes back 35 years in some cases. So we can't fix what happened back then, but what we're here to discuss tonight, no judgment on amazing employees, amazing people, what they contribute to the district, but we're here to talk about was the contract violated or not. And that's simple lines in here was the contract violated or not? That's what we're here to talk about, whether it was capricious or whether it was spotty or whatever, was it violated? And that's what I just want you to keep in mind.
So before we close the hearing, did you want to have any final remarks?
No, that should just thank you for your time and for your questions.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm now going to declare the evidentiary portion of the hearing closed. And the board's now going to recess into a non-meeting room. We'll probably go back there for the purpose of conducting deliberations regarding the grievance. At this point, I would ask the union and its representatives to excuse themselves from the room so that the board may deliberate regarding the grievance.
But they can stay in this room.
Right. And we're also going to ask Oh, Bob's here. Okay, who else is missing? More? Did you give your paper back to me? Yeah. Just the names.
Everything?
Just the document.
Just the first one.
More, probably Debbie's one.
She wrote on the back of it.
Yeah, she was writing on that. It didn't get stapled down here actually.
So just ask her if she needs to copy
anything first. Did she go up the back door?
Make more.
Probably went to the ladies' room.
Probably went to the ladies' room.
She did.
Wait, she comes back. We're just waiting for a member to come back.
You have the date for August meeting.
I can find it.
I have to look. It's in here somewhere.
10th.
Is it August 10th?
Is that one at 6?
Yeah.
So August 10th.
Gather my grandkids to Yellowstone for my son.
For a motion regarding the disposition of the grievance.
I move that the board denies the Regional School District 13 Support Staff Union Local Number 4914, its grievance dated March 16, 2022, and authorizes the board chair with the administration and/or board council to draft and issue a written decision to the union regarding the grievance.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jason. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Motion passes. The next item, thank you. That's good. The next item on the agenda is just communication. I only have 3, well, there was 4. There's another letter that came in today, but I don't have it on here. A letter from Brian Reed regarding the Memorial School. Our teacher was referred to the superintendent. A letter from, email from Cynthia Nick regarding the high school algebra 2H concerns. That was addressed by Mrs. Stone. And last one by Maya Perry lists concerns with elimination of coding tech ed position at the high school, which was also referred to the superintendent.
We did have a few communications today.
Does anyone else have any?
But I don't think we have an
one.
answer.
I had another one that came in today, but it basically went to Doug. I think we all got a copy of it as well.
Yep.
But it went to, directly to Doug, so I haven't responded to it. Did anyone else have any other communications?
I just wanted to address the last, I don't know if this falls into communications or where we can talk about it, or if it gets moved, but the last notification from Kim about the enrollment study.
Mm-hmm.
Did we, because I know we can't respond through email, so can we discuss when this is gonna be talked about or distributed?
2 months, right? Yeah, it takes 2 months to
Yeah,
get the
it just
enrollment
said
study
2
done.
months. It should be ready by August. Yeah, you could respond to Kim.
I didn't look at it as responding to Kim. It was a, when do we want to have the information? The next meeting? Or are we gonna schedule a special meeting in August as soon, we can talk about the information as soon as possible?
Oh, yeah.
Or wait all the way until September, which I personally prefer not to.
Right.
So I felt like this is the time and place for us to
Yep.
decide now when we're gonna talk about this.
Have they said they definitely can't make August 10th? Or
He
they
is
said
on vacation.
Yeah.
Ah,
But
so
I can
we'll be ready
distribute
by
the
August.
report, and then
you can have a special meeting when he returns, or you can wait for the actual presentation at the September meeting.
Oh, so you're saying we might have the
So that
data
would-
by August 10th? We just wouldn't have.
That's what,
that-
that's
the
what I
gist.
took it
Wouldn't
as, we'll
have
have the
a
information, but
presenter.
then we're gonna all sit with it for a month, which I feel like is such a waste of time.
If
So-
we have the
Or we could
information, it's
change
just
the-
data, do we really need to wait to have a meeting after we receive it in August?
That's what it says, I guess.
So I can distribute the report, and then we can have, the presenter might be able to explain things in a little bit better terms and kind of, give different kinds of viewpoints and how the data looks and trends and all that kind of stuff that you won't just get from a report, but you can get the report to see, kind of how it's trending and whatnot, and make your own kind of assumptions before the
So I
speaker.
guess my question would be to you, Lucy, is should we make a special meeting to just discuss that? If he can make a different meeting in August, or are we waiting until the September meeting to put it on the agenda?
I'd rather not wait till September, that's my feeling. If we want, if it comes in around the 10th and we can't get the presentation, could we just move the meeting so that we can have it, just one meeting in August, and then just discuss it at that time? It would be a special meeting.
Remote meeting? A remote
But
special meeting, other
but
than
the
our August
presentation.
10th meeting?
Yeah, that would be my suggestion
Yeah,
if
we do
that's the
that too.
timing. And again, I've not worked with this individual. I'd wait till we actually get the report before we
Mhm.
make any of these decisions, because
Yeah.
what if we think we're gonna have it on a certain day and it's actually earlier or later? But I like the suggestion
Well, yeah,
about,
we could agree to that when we
about
do
doing
get
a
the
a
report.
remote
that we
meeting,
schedule.
standalone, and then that
Mhm.
individual can present, and we can ask all the questions we want, and then decide where we're going from there. I think that's good.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Maureen.
Good question. So, the next thing was gonna be, our next meeting was August 10th, but that's gonna be up in the air, so that's where it is right now. August 10th is our next meeting date. Public comment is the next item. At the end of the meeting, the public comment should refer to items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? Anyone from the public? Yes.
Hi, I'm Maureen Funk from Durham. I'm sorry I screamed on some roller coasters this weekend, so my voice is hoarse. I hope that it is just a mistake that we don't have DEI in any fashion on the agenda tonight. I don't think it was fully expressed that it would be on the agenda at every meeting, but I do think it should be. And it certainly hasn't been very long since any incidents have taken place, and I do think there should be at least some sort of update as far as what the board is doing or aware of, as far as the district efforts to continue our DEI investigations, and just sort of internally, even I know Corey's not here tonight, but an update on the curriculum study and things like that. I do think that should be discussed at every meeting. Also, I think in light of some recent incidents, to not have discussed anti-bullying plans tonight is probably a big miss. So I hope at maybe the next meeting that there'll be some discussion of what the board plans on doing with some anti-bullying initiatives. I will repeat myself again and say that I think that some form of anonymous reporting technology should be available to the students. To think that students are going to walk a paper form into the office and have people watch them put it in the box is kind of ridiculous. It's not kind of ridiculous, it's totally ridiculous. There are apps available, and even, potentially hotlines and things like that. And yes, will there be some erroneous information with an anonymous system? I think probably always. But the bottom line is right now we have a body of students, at least in the 3 schools that I'm familiar with, of students that don't feel comfortable reporting bullying and or racism incidents. And that's not okay. So even if we have to roll out some kind of imperfect system at first to get kids to trust in the system a little bit, I think that should be explored. So I just didn't want tonight to go by without talking about those things. I fully agree, by the way, with the community college collaborations. I think that's spot on and marches towards the future of education, and I think could open up a lot of doors for us. So I like those and appreciate those suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Meeting is adjourned, thank you.
It's only 8:23, Dairy serves open. So I'm happy to get my